Has thanked late Ambassador Billy Modise for his contribution to the fight for non-racialism across the globe. The president was speaking at Modise's funeral at Marks Park in Johannesburg and has described the late Ambassador Billy Modise as a person with a big heart.
Well, Modise died at the age of 87 after a long illness, and a number of local and international dignitaries attended his funeral. Modise went into exile back in 1960 and only returned in 1991. He worked for the United Nations and later the ANC appointed him as its chief representative in Sweden.
He was the first black High Commissioner of South Africa to Sweden from 1995 up until 1999. He then was appointed as the Chief of State Protocol under Thabo Mbeki's administration. Modise retired in 2006. Modise's family described him as he mobilized support for the liberation movement in Sweden.
Modise played a critical role in laying a strong foundation in Sweden that paved the way for future relations between the ANC and Sweden. As a result of his tireless efforts, Sweden became a very central part of the struggle against apartheid. Upon his arrival in Sweden, Modise began mobilizing student formations against apartheid and networking on behalf of the ANC. The strategy was to isolate and boycott all South African products. What gave hope to the ANC that they could achieve their objectives was a distinctly strong egalitarian credo that Sweden and other Nordic countries had given, that they had never been colonial powers and hence had not created the seemingly insoluble problem of the colonial master always remaining the colonial master. Whilst in Sweden, he met and lobbied Olof Palme, the then Prime Minister, at a function. The Prime Minister advised that the ANC strategy should in fact be to request the Swedish people to pressure the parliamentarians to support the struggle of the people of South Africa against apartheid.
Well, South Africa has once again bid farewell to ANC veteran Ambassador Billy Modise. He has been buried at the West Park Cemetery in Johannesburg, and President Cyril Ramaphosa described Ambassador Modise as a man with a big heart in his fight for non-racialism across the globe.
Many of us found him to be a splendid person with a big heart. Some of us in the then leadership of the trade union movement saw this big heart when he guided us as trade unionists in our dealings with the Swedish trade union movement. He helped us to navigate the dynamics of the politics of our movement and the enthusiastic support of the Nordic countries in our struggle, but more especially Sweden. We saw in him the qualities that we seek to see in ourselves, and we found in him the human being that each one of us so dearly want to become. He taught us that no life could be complete if it was not lived in the service of others. From his earliest experiences of the indignity and injustice of racial discrimination, Billy was driven throughout his whole life by a profound concern for the plight of the oppressed, the vulnerable, the poor, and the exploited people of our country. He was drawn to the revolutionary politics of the Congress movement because this movement sought a fundamentally different order of social and economic relations. This movement sought a society freed from the iniquity of apartheid dispossession and subjugation, in which every person could realize their potential. Measured in his delivery, clear in his articulation, and passionate in his conviction, Billy Modise carried the message of our liberation struggle throughout the world, but more especially when he was our representative in Sweden. It was a message that found resonance even among people who were far removed in both time and space from the troubles and the struggles of the people of South Africa.
Former President Thabo Mbeki also paid his tributes, saying that the building of a new South Africa had not been an easy task and required the dedication of people like Ambassador Billy Modise.
Our experience during 24 years as a democratic country has confirmed that the task of the eradication of the legacy of colonialism and apartheid and building a prosperous, non-racial and non-sexist democracy is indeed very complex. Among others, this emphasizes the great importance of doing everything necessary and possible to develop and inspire our youth to engage in this historic process of the fundamental socio-economic transformation of our country, drawing the necessary lessons from the example Billy Modise set during his own youthful years. And that same experience of 24 years of democracy has also firmly confirmed that South Africa is not an island sufficient unto itself. To succeed in all its endeavors, it needs to be truly, fully integrated within Africa and the rest of the world.
President Thabo Mbeki speaking there at Billy Modise's funeral. And that's where we're going to